Good morning and welcome back to Open Hand Farm. I am kind of challenging myself today to look at my garden plan, see if it was worth all of the work that I put into it, and if it has really helped me or not. If you haven't seen my garden planning video, then you will not have seen my plan that I made for the garden. I measured out each of my garden beds on graph paper and I put it in the approximate placement of my yard, and then I decided where I was going to plant things, and I went ahead and counted out the spacing and how they would fit and what I would end up doing. Then, because I didn't want to carry this big map with me while I was planting or while I was preparing to plant, I took a picture of each of those garden beds and blew it up and printed it off so that I could carry this along with me. I put it in a plastic sleeve so that I could use my dirty garden hands. I just wiped these off. They were in pretty rough shape, but I was able to just pull these out. I carried them around in a bucket with my planting materials and stuff, and I would pull it out and I'd say, now where does that go? Where do I need to put this? But first, before I planted, I would look at it and say, we need to put cow panels just straight through here to use as a trellis for tomatoes or peppers, or we need to do cow panels in an arch here so that we could do indeterminate tomatoes or pumpkins or whatever. So it helped us be able to know where to put our infrastructure as well as where to put our plants. So let's look at each garden bed plan and see if I used it and if I feel like I used it to its fullest, or if I would make some changes for next year. Let's start with the clothesline bed. Okay, this is the clothesline bed. So let's kind of do some comparing here. My goal was to plant potatoes in this area here. There are the potatoes over there. So I did not use as big of a space. As you can see, it looks like I planned almost half of it for potatoes. We didn't buy as many seed potatoes as I thought we would, so we did not need to use all of that space. Now, right here, I have peppers. This is poblano and jalapeno peppers. Well, I did not do that. I decided at the last minute to plant some orange bell peppers right here. But these are jalapenos and not jalapenos. I did not plant poblanos here because I ended up having room in the back garden, the new bed, for them as well. So I did not need to put them in here. This plan is close to what I had it as. This area here, I decided on the plan that I would plant some hot peppers. Mark was wanting to plant some habaneros or something like that. Well, we did not get those done. So instead, as you can see, I put my straw bales there. And they are a great space for that. And once that squash gets a little bit bigger and starts falling over, it's going to have plenty of floor space there to grow. So I'm glad that we didn't plant the hot peppers there. Now, right here, it says zinnias. And as you can see, I have zinnias. I did go ahead and put my old bed frame there behind them as kind of a backdrop, and I really like that. I'm glad that we did that. Now, behind the zinnias, in this area, I have sweet potatoes. And I have sweet potatoes. Now moving on across, I have my herbs here. It says herbs already here. So I do have those. And that is oregano, sage, thyme, echinacea, yarrow, things like that over here. Then here, I said that I would put some basil and nasturtium and maybe some other herbs. Let's go a little closer up there. I added lemon balm. There's a big dill plant. And over here, I have some chamomile. Behind that, I have some blue spice basil. And over here, I have some borage. Now, something that is very different is these sunflowers. I did not plant these sunflowers. They were volunteers, and I decided that since I had this open space, I would just let them go. And I didn't know if they would help shade the Malabar spinach, but they have, and that's been nice. Now, another thing that is different than what was on my plan is over here, I planted some eggplant. I have a nasturtium over there that's looking very sad. And Mark did buy a couple of pepper plants. So this is a cayenne pepper over here, all by its lonesome. Along here, I decided to plant Malabar spinach on a trellis. Well, as you can tell, that is going perfectly. Maybe too perfectly. You guys, this stuff is crazy. I tried to grow it for 3 years straight and had no luck. So when my plants came up, I said, I'm planting all 6 of them and just see what happens. 2 or 3 would have been fine, but don't worry. I have Malabar spinach. And I did move my bird bath down here from the front because the birds like to roost on the sunflowers and then go in the water, and I love watching them. So for the most part, this garden is how I planned it, and I am very pleased with the way it is growing. Now let's head over to the chicken garden. Okay, this is our chicken garden, at least one section of it. Here is the printed out map of it. So here is the chicken run, and here is the chicken house. So right here, it says basil and cilantro and nasturtium. I did not plant any of those right here. I, at the last minute, decided I wanted to plant celery this year. So that is what I have planted all along here. I've also got some leeks planted over here, which I did think that I would put in by the Malabar spinach where the eggplants were. But since I didn't have a lot of them to plant and there was room by the celery, I just went ahead and planted them all in this row. Now, these covered beds, I knew that I needed to put those here. That helped me with my infrastructure. I have 2 covered beds here, and they both had cabbage in them. Well, this one had a Chinese cabbage, and it got eaten up by rabbits. And I have since then planted green beans in here twice, and they're not growing. So I'm not sure what I'm going to plant here next, but I do not like it sitting there empty. So I'm going to work on that. Now the other cabbages, as you can tell, are growing. I do need to lift the screen up and weed them desperately, but I have not. That's maybe a job for later this week. Looking at our map, here's our cabbages. Then we have cucumbers. I had a spot here that I thought I would plant peas, and after I started spacing this out more, I decided I wasn't going to have room for that row. So that row got taken away and the cucumbers got put down here. So here are the cucumbers, and they are doing great. We went ahead and added their trellis when we were working on our infrastructure. And as we move up the garden area, you can see these little kind of parenthesis looking things. That indicated where we were going to put our cow panel tunnels for our indeterminate tomatoes. After looking at the space, we decided instead of putting 2 arbors in, we would make 1 arbor and make it come across this way. So that's what we've done. Over here, you can see we have zucchini. Well, that was moved to up here because when we put the new trellis area in, it took more of this space. It was a wider space. So we moved the zucchini up here, which is fine. And as you can see, it has worked great. We have our tomatoes trellised on the arbor. We put some flowers here, some calendula and some salvia. And then up across the top is the zucchini that is not looking great. Those squash vine borers have attacked it. And I just haven't been able to be out here every day like I want to. So they are just dying back. If we continue on around the corner, you can see that I wanted to plant zinnias here. I've never planted flowers in this garden bed, and it's the bed that I see the most when I look out the windows. Those windows right there. So now I have zinnias and I love looking out at them. And I know that they're bringing in a lot of pollinators. So this is the completed, yet a little bit tweaked chicken run bed. Now let's go look at the fire pit bed. So this is our new and improved fire pit. We love it. And back here is the garden pit bed. And you'll see that we have had some problems here. But we're not looking at that today. We're looking to see if the plan that I made was followed and if it worked. Okay, this is the plan for this bed. It was to have corn in these rows and to have yellow squash over here, and then flowers and sunflowers here. Well, we went ahead and planted corn all the way down here and put the zucchini here, and then a few sunflowers on this edge, but the sunflowers I planted did not even grow. Instead, you'll see again that we have volunteer sunflowers that came up, and the ones that I planted, the rabbits ate. Well, we have planted corn for about 3 different years, and we have not gotten any of it. This year, I was feeling so good about it. I was like, oh, this is awesome. And we put up the electric fence, and we hadn't been out here for about 3 days because we had been so busy doing some other things that needed to be done. And when I came out here, this is what I found: destruction of corn. The electric fence had been turned off and not remembered to turn back on. So it was no problem for deer or raccoon or whatever it was to come in here and eat our corn. I was so sad when I came out. We do still have one good yellow squash plant that is producing. So see those little squash in there, but the other is definitely struggling because, again, the wonderful vine borer. So I'll just clean up all this mess, and maybe I'll try to plant green beans over here. But we did pretty much stay to the plan. We just shifted the zucchini over, and the sunflowers were a little bit more than what I was going to plant, but they were volunteers and I just left them. Now let's go look at our new bed this year, the compost bed. Here's the bed, and here is our plan for the bed: to plant okra on this edge, determinate tomatoes here, peppers here, green beans, and pumpkin and or watermelon, whatever we decided to plant down here. And over here, we would plant onions along this edge and a nasturtium right here. So let's look at what we actually did. We do have okra here on this edge, and it's doing great. I need to get out here and clip it. We've been doing our vacation Bible school at church this week, and I have just been too busy to get out here. I did come out a couple of mornings ago, but this okra, if you don't come every day, you're just gonna have monsters. So here is the okra. We did plant a nasturtium here on the corner. We had a wind that was horrendous, and it actually blew it out of the ground. So I replanted it, and it is surviving and trying to come back. One thing we did not plan on was potatoes, but this was our potato bed last year, and we obviously missed digging up some potatoes. So we had some volunteer potatoes. I let some of them stay, but I pulled some of them out as well. So they're about ready to dig up. Now, these first 3 rows I marked on my garden plan to have tomatoes. Well, we thought we were gonna have enough cow panels to put up for all of the tomato rows and pepper rows. But when we got to doing it, we realized we were gonna have to do something different for these 2 rows. So I chose to stake peppers instead of tomatoes. So we went ahead and planted the peppers first, and they are doing great. We've got a lot of big peppers that just need to have some color put on them. And the poblano peppers are on this row instead of over in the clothesline bed where I originally thought I would put them. Then we have onions where we said we were going to plant them. We have 3 boxes here of onions. They are doing okay. They're not doing great. I need to come in and kind of dig the dirt around them to give them more area to grow in, and maybe trim some of them back, but we'll get there. I'm hoping to spend next week every morning in the garden and just catching up from the time that I have missed out this week. So these next 3 cow panel structures are holding our determinate tomatoes, and we have different varieties. Look at these paste tomatoes. Those things are beautiful. And we're starting to get some blushing on them, a little bit of color. Now, will I do something different? The back sides of these got eaten. It was like something new they could hide under the canopies of the tree and eat things. So I think I would maybe, when I first plant them, put some kind of fencing connected to the end of this garden, just so that they couldn't sneak in down there and grab a nibble. This one they also did, but I went ahead and had a few more tomatoes that I put in place back there, so that worked out fine. Then down here we have our green beans, which was in the plan. But again, the far end down there got nibbled on. Now, part of our infrastructure was to put some fencing here to keep our vining veggies from coming in and attacking the green beans. And so that's working well with this watermelon. But I have to show you this pumpkin that was actually a volunteer pumpkin. I didn't get any planted. It really likes that fence, but it also is going over it. I don't even know what kind of pumpkin this is, so I'll be curious to see. I'm guessing it's like a field pumpkin, but it's doing great. It is doing what I wanted it to do, which was to grow this direction. And if it gets in the yard, we just will mow around it. And then at the end of the season, when we pull all of the plants up, we'll go ahead and mow the yard under it. No big deal. So this garden bed is almost identical to the plan. And that's really what I needed for this one, since it was a new space this year and I wasn't sure what we were gonna do with it. So it helped so much to think it through in the house and draw it out and space it out and know when we came out here, when it was time to get things going, we knew exactly what to do. Now let's take a look in the food forest. I have to say that I have kind of neglected the food forest this year. We have brought some mulch in, but not enough, and I haven't spread it like I needed to. And this bindweed is just about to drive me insane. It just keeps coming and coming and coming, and I can't control it. Now over here where the mulch is deeper, it's a little bit better. So I think we're just gonna need more mulch, which Mark is gonna love. But I mean, I can wheelbarrow it into, no worries. But let's look at the map that I made for this area and see if it corresponds with what is going on. All right, so here is the gate to come in, and I put cherry tomatoes there, which I have, and they are actually starting to get color on them. Maybe another day and I'll be able to pick some of them. I'm so excited. Now, these two items, chamomile and spilanthes, the spilanthes plants did not start, and the chamomile I put over in the clothesline bed because I really wanted to use this for more asparagus. But instead, as you can see right here, my garden had its own ideas for this area. And I love it. I absolutely love it. So I'm not going to complain. I have this much room left. So I've decided to put asparagus somewhere else next year and not worry about it. And this borage has also taken over this end of this area, which you see all of those bees flying around. They love it as well. The bees are here and enjoying this, so I don't want to take it away. Let's see what else was on the plan. Okay, over here is our little teepee, and I decided to put peas on it. Well, the peas did not grow. Instead, we had some more volunteer sunflowers. So as you can see, instead we have a sunflower teepee. The kids love it, and it is so full and pretty and fun to go inside. So I would not change that. I love it. Now, we were going to add 2 arbors here for growing pumpkins on. Well, I decided I didn't want to come in and look at the back of a trellis and then not be able to see this trellis. So again, like we did the indeterminate tomatoes, we brought the trellis over this way and only did 1. So you can see this trellis now, right here. And we have planted some different winter squashes on it, and they are doing well. We are getting squash. And then over here we have a different squash, and I can't even remember what they are, you guys. I'm not gonna lie. So we have 2 squash on this side. We had 2 squash on this side, but one of them died. So we have 1 growing here. So it will grow on up the trellis as it gets bigger, and I think we'll do great. Now, one of the plans I had was to have garlic here and in this bed here. Well, it rained too much and it drowned my garlic. So you see what I have instead. I have nothing there. Now over here, I planted a very tiny, small ground cherry plant. And you see what's happened. So that box, it's producing. I like it. Over in this other box where I had garlic, it's being surrounded by mint, and it has more of the blue spice basil in it. So it's kind of doing its own thing too. Now, if you have never seen a ground cherry or heard of ground cherries, I will show you what they are. They are part of the tomato family, and they grow in these little paper wrappers, and you just pop it open, and it has this little cherry shape thing that resembles a tomato maybe, but it's also sweet like a cherry. So that is what a ground cherry is. I did not make a lot of plans for this garden bed because I already have a lot of perennials in here. So I have pear trees, I have peach trees, we have blackberries that are producing, and they are starting to turn black, so I'm excited about that. And as you can see, we are getting figs. I have 2 of them. See, that one's got several on it. And then there's more hiding down in here. So to answer the question, was it worth it? Am I glad I spent maybe a total of 8 to 12 hours because I would kind of tweak the map every once in a while? Am I glad that I spent that time in January so that when I came out here in March and started setting up the infrastructure and then starting my plants and bringing my plants out to plant them, was I glad that I had a map to go by? Absolutely. And it's just worked out great. So will I do this again next year? Maybe not. But that's because I just might do it exactly like I did this year. I might change up, put the peppers where the tomatoes were where the peppers were, put the sweet potatoes where the potatoes were. I don't know. I might make some little tweaks like that, but I love the way this garden layout has worked. I might put a zucchini plant in like one in each garden bed instead of a row of zucchini or something like that. But for the most part, I'm leaving the infrastructure like we have it, and I'm going to just tweak it slightly for next year because it has worked great. So if you have struggled with where do I put this? What do I do with this? Why don't I have enough room there? I thought I would. Oh no, I have extra plants. This winter, while you're just sitting and dreaming of having a garden, take that dream and put it on paper and just plan it out. You will be so surprised how fun it is to have a map to go by, to lay it all out, and then look at it and say, oh my word, it worked and it's doing great. And I'm so excited. So thank you for coming along. And if you have more questions about how to plan your garden, I will leave a link in the description box for my garden planning video where I made my garden maps, as well as the video where we laid down the infrastructure so that we would be ready to put those plants in. There's nothing more frustrating than to have a plant that needs to go in the ground and you're not ready for it yet. With having a map for the infrastructure, when Mark would say, what can I do today? I want to go outside and work. I could just say, here's the map, and I need cow panels here, or I need trellises here. And he just came out and worked on them. And that was great because otherwise I would be having to say, well, I really can't come out right now to think about it. So we're going to have to think about it later. I'll try to figure it out. It just was so smooth and it worked perfectly. So that was a blessing as well, to have it ready to go. If you're new here, welcome. I am so glad you came along. Please leave a comment and let me know if this has helped you in your garden planning. And until next time, blessings on all of you and all of yours.